Hi, Hattie. Welcome to our Zoom. Today, we're doing this fireside chat for the Arc'teryx series, and they're going to be able to share it with their community. So I'm excited to hear your story and how you got going as a journalist. So thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited. I wish we had a real fire and we could smell it.
That would be amazing. We need to get like those fire incense that we could both be burning at the same time.
Yes, little Douglas fir.
Yes. Perfect. All right. So today's topic, big picture, is storytelling. So my first question for you is more general. How does storytelling play a role in your personal and professional life?
Personally, I have always been a really big reader. I grew up in northern Minnesota and my family had like 14 acres and gardens and all this. And my parents would be the ones who would say, go outside and don't come back until, dark. And so I'd go to the library and I'd get stacks and stacks of books and then I would disappear with my books. I have fond memories of bruising my tailbone from reading in a tree for a long time. Or like
That's
falling
very
asleep
specific.
among, isn't it? I can feel it when I say it. Or I'd fall asleep among like the tomato patch and I'd get a sunburn because I was reading and I just passed out. So I've just always been interested in stories. And I recently learned that sometimes it seems like people are interrupting the conversation because they want to interject their personal story, but it's not usually like they're trying to be obnoxious or they don't care about what you're saying. It's more that they're trying to personally relate by being like, hey, I totally feel that. Here's this thing that happened to me. So that fits me a little bit. Sometimes I jump the gun and try to tell my own story. So I'm trying to write it in a little bit. Professionally, I am a journalist. So I am a journalist in the outdoor industry. I've written for Misadventures and for REI and a couple of other places. So I just love hearing other people's stories. I'm the person at the party that just kind of interrogates people and doesn't realize it. So they're everywhere.
I don't have a recorder. I literally just have all these questions.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have a favorite book, or was there a book when you were growing up that you were just like, you would always return to?
Oh, I was a big mystery series person. My library, I lived in a town with like 2,000 people, so I had an excellent library. And the Nancy Drew and Boxcar series and Hardy Boy series, yeah. I'll return to that forever, even though I'm obviously a way different reading level now, and it's a kind of a different experience, but that was definitely it back in the day.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, can you tell everyone a little bit about the magazine that you started?
Oh, yeah. So back in, oh my gosh, I think it's been like 5 years now, so like 2015-ish, there weren't any outdoor publications that were just for women. Now we have She Explores and Sisu and a couple of other different publications, but at the time, Gail from She Explores, her and I were kind of talking, and both of us wanted to create our own publications. And you do see women featured in some of the bigger brand names like Outside and whatnot, but I really wanted to feature women who wouldn't necessarily qualify, if you would, for some of the larger media outlets. So I created WHOA, WHOA, which stands for Women of Heart and Outdoor Adventure. And first, it was just a place for me to profile awesome ladies and kind of have an excuse, if you will, to be like, hey, I want to talk to you. And it's crazy to think about now, but the first person I interviewed was Crystal Wright, who is this like incredible adventure photographer. She works with all the top brands and is super well known. And I didn't know that at the time. I interviewed her because she'd just done this awesome kayak trip in Mongolia. And now I'm kind of like, oh my God, what did I do? So yeah, it was an interesting way to introduce things. But now we just kind of focus on profiling women who work and play outside, and we have contributors. Anybody can write for us. It's a no budget publication, so that can be limiting, and I totally understand that. But anybody who's interested in writing about the female perspective. Yeah.
And what have you learned about telling a great story through the profiles and the interviews?
I love interviewing people. That's my favorite part. And my most difficult part is doing the interview and being really excited and learning all these things and then just sitting on it, because that
Mhm.
was the fun part. And I had to like weave it all together and
Yeah.
put it in a type package, edit it. And the one thing that I definitely have stuck true to from journalism school to just kind of my own career is if there's something that you think is particularly interesting, you're not the only one who's also going to find that interesting. So if you do an interview and something really sticks out to you, don't hesitate to kind of dig into it in the moment. Or if you listen to it afterwards and think, oh my gosh, I should have asked more, don't hesitate to reach back out to your source and say, hey, I didn't realize how much I was interested in this thing. Can you tell me more about it?
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I kind of forgot a question in there. How did you learn to tell
Right.
a great story? You said journalism school, so like, how do?
Yeah. I would credit J school I went to for magazine writing, and I graduated in 2012, so things have changed.
Yeah.
I feel pretty ancient as far as that goes, even though that wasn't that long ago. Um, Honestly, the things that I learned in journalism school haven't been super helpful, unfortunately. A lot of people write and have never been through how many grand of
Well,
instruction.
it's good
So
news for the people who can't go to journalism school, right?
totally, or who are like, I don't like school. That's not
Yeah.
a format that I love. So it's more about finding people who you think are interesting, and then just really making an interview. If you do interviews, making them conversational. So for me, at least, making them more of a conversation, making them more of I'll share things, they'll share things. It's more of making people comfortable than just grilling, grilling, grilling. Unless you're doing hard news, which I don't want to do.
Yeah. And so, is there anything now that you do like to kind of work on your skill, or is it just like practice makes perfect kind of thing? Like just keep doing it.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. Reading is the other thing. That's constantly kind of finding out different formats of articles and like finding a couple of key journalists or storytellers in whatever format, podcasts, video, etc., that you really love, and then kind of digging into the technical aspects of that, whether that's like writing out format of an article or an introduction from a podcast, or just really paying attention to everything around you, I think is really the key there, which is nice because you don't always have to be producing, especially when the world is crazy around you and maybe you don't have the juice to be creative at the moment.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh, I hear that.
Yeah.
So, what do you have any other tips for people who might be getting started as storytellers, either from a writer perspective or from an editor perspective?
um Editing has been an interesting thing that I never really thought I'd come into as far as editing other people's work. I started Woe with no intention of other people writing for the publication, and then people just started asking me about it. And honestly, still to this day, 5 years in, it like warms the cockles of my heart when people are like, "Hey, I want to write for you," and I just kind of makes me want to cry, to be honest, in a good way.
I get that
So
too.
editing, right? Editing is kind of both for yourself and for other people, of learning how to provide constructive criticism and doing it in a way where you're honoring the work and the space that this other person has done and yourself, but you're also being able to make it better in whatever way that's possible. So both for you and for other people, kind of having different options almost of, hey, we could take it this way, or we could try this thing, or here's another option, to kind of still make it personal, because that's why people read your writing, and that's why they keep coming back to it. So it's also helpful to have a couple of key people who are storytellers that you really look up to and that their voice stands out to you, and then kind of just follow their career, read their stories, and listen to their recordings, and stay true to yourself.
I love that. And are there any writers that you would recommend following, and where? Like, do you follow writers on Twitter or subscribe to their newsletters? What is
Hmm.
your preferred form of learning?
There's so many different ways these days. With writers, I found that Twitter is really great. Twitter is also, to me, the most immediate as far as responses. So I would consider a couple of people who I've never met friends because of Twitter and because we've interacted there. I really love Blaire Braverman, who just ran the Iditarod 2 years ago and has a column for Outside that's pretty popular. It's kind of an advice column. She's a sled dog racer, and that's kind of how I became aware of her. Crystal Langlois is also a really great writer who works for High Country News and a couple of other publications like that, who just has a really amazing style. And I'm one of those people who will go through a masthead, or who will go through like the table of contents, I guess, of a magazine. And if I see a person that I know, I'll immediately read that. And sometimes I'll skip the other stuff. So
Yeah.
what can you do?
You only have so much time in the day.
So true. So true.
Cool. Well, you kind of mentioned this before. I mean, already since 2012, journalism and storytelling has changed a ton. What do you think the next 5 years has for us storytellers?
I honestly, everything's up in the air. When I was graduating college, people were starting to worry about print, and whether that would survive. But there are truly magazines popping up, every week. So it's kind of curious. As a book nerd, I love print. I would much prefer to have something in my hands and smell it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I'm an environmentally focused person and I totally understand trees and trying to, preserve the environment and different resources and whatnot. But I feel like as long as I didn't have a format for my writing, so I made a magazine. And yes, it's online only because I don't have funding for it and I'm not looking for it, but it's something that if you want to create something in a particular medium, don't worry about what other people are doing. Don't worry about what's the future going to look like. Who the hell knows?
Yeah, just tell a good story.
Mm-hmm.
And to close it up, do you have any other advice or words that you want to share with the Arc'teryx community who might be watching this?
Something that I really frequently have experienced as an outdoor instructor, especially for women-specific events, is women in particular, and even just a lot of people, are really afraid to speak up. They're really nervous about asking questions, or maybe like you go to an event and you see someone speak and you really want to talk to them, or either you want to tell them how you're madly in love with their work, or you're just stoked about a trip they took or whatever. And instead, a lot of people will like kind of mouse around and like not do it. And then later they'll be like, oh, I really wish I talked to that person. It doesn't matter if you're an athlete or you're little old whoever in podunk nowhere. People want to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
So don't be afraid to ask questions, whether it's, or to like share your opinion, whether it's over different social media platforms or an email or talking to someone in real life. It's something that you can truly have really incredible experiences and really awesome relationship building. Even if you're like, oh, this person isn't going to want to talk to me, or they're so cool or professional or whatever. Like, people are just stoked to talk to each other.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And how do people get in touch with you or follow you if they want more of Hatie?
Ugh. The best way to reach me is through probably Instagram. We're at WhoaMegWhoa, WHOA, and whoameg.co is the website. So yeah, that's probably the best place. If anybody's interested in contributing about women-focused stories, women with an X in it, so whoever considers himself to be female identifying, the website has all the information on contributing.
Perfect. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, until next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.